Hi everyone, so here's my next video installation. I've had some progress finally in terms of physical measurements, which of course shouldn't be the only focus, but somehow ends up becoming a focus in eating disorder treatment, which seems perverse because of course it's also anorexia's focus, and sometimes I think the focus upon BMI and weight in treatment just reinforces that and perhaps isn't helpful. Again, I'm not going to be mentioning any numbers. All I'm saying is that after 3 weeks going the wrong direction, things, hopefully touch wood, seem to be turning around and going the right direction. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen my post about that. I was also going to use this video to try and answer a few questions I've had. I can't answer them fully because they're quite sort of individual and personal, and everybody's eating disorder is different, everybody's experience of anorexia is different. Individuals are individuals, and but I'll do my best. So I've had questions about whether people should drop out of university or school. It's not something I can advise on. That's a completely individual decision. Only you know how well you are doing, how well you are functioning. I would suggest if you're asking the question, then there is something in your brain probably doubting how well you're coping at the moment. And I think that's a discussion that needs to be had with friends, family, and GP or community team if you're under them, and of course school or university, occupational health. Those are all the resources that I would recommend. There is not an exact BMI or number. You can be unwell at a normal BMI. You can be struggling to function. Many mental illnesses exist at normal BMIs, and people have to take time out, and that shouldn't be something to be ashamed of. It's actually quite a common thing. The thing that makes it seem uncommon is the stigma and the fact that people don't talk about it. So that would be my response to that one. If you're struggling with an eating disorder and that's taking over your life, then I would always recommend put your health first. Other things can wait, and it's not worth delaying. It's not worth allowing anorexia to become chronic and to go on for years. In my case, my eating issues started at 13, and I didn't finally get an official diagnosis of anorexia till I was 23. And that has definitely made it much harder for me in terms of recovery, and as a result I've had a relapsing and remitting course. I've had years, as I've said before, where I've been very well, but also years where I've really struggled. And the longer it goes on, the more hardwired it becomes in your brain, and the harder it is to break those thought patterns and those cognitions and cycles. So I'd always recommend seeking help, and if you're not getting help from your GP or your GP doesn't seem to understand eating disorders, then either you need to see another GP or you need to go to something like the Beat website, which will provide resources that you can take to your GP to help you to explain why you need help and what help you need. Those things weren't available when I were younger. I think it is slowly getting better, but I completely appreciate we're not there yet. Another question I had was about the Mental Health Act, and again around BMI and what BMI gets sectioned at, and that's not how the Mental Health Act works. The Mental Health Act is about compulsory detention for assessment or treatment of a mental illness, which can include eating disorders, and it should always be the least restrictive option, so it shouldn't be the first go-to option. Wherever possible, the patient should be involved. It should be informal if possible. But if it does go to the Mental Health Act and the patient is sectioned, then the criteria that is followed, and this is a very basic summary, is that somebody has to have a mental health disorder, which an eating disorder would be. They have to be at risk to themselves or others. That definition is quite broad, and remember, risk comes in different forms. So in anorexia, yes, it has one of the highest mortality rates, the highest mortality of the mental illnesses. But it's a common misconception that all of the deaths associated with anorexia are to do with physical consequences of extreme starvation, and that's not the case. There's a significant proportion from the reading that I've done, 20 to 40% of deaths actually caused by suicide, either from the anorexia and the suffering or from associated affective disorders such as depression, which you can imagine not easy, that's not the right word, but common developments when you're struggling with such internal turmoil and guilt day in, day out. And sometimes anorexia can be a coping mechanism for those feelings as well. So it can get very complicated, and there is no set BMI at which somebody would be sectioned. There's so many factors that would be considered. The person would also struggle to have the ability to make decisions about their treatment. So that would be another factor where the Mental Health Act may come in, but that's just a really brief summary from me. And the Mental Health Act legislation is actually pages and pages long, and I would recommend that if you want more information on that, a good place to start is either the NHS or the Mind website. So yeah, please don't wait till you reach a specific BMI or a BMI that you think is sick. Sick can be any BMI, and the earlier you get help, the earlier you get intervention, the better the outcome, and the sooner that you can return to normal life. It's not an aim to get to hospital, it's not an aim to get to an inpatient unit, it's not an achievement. It takes so much away, and really, if you can, try and get the help early on. So that's where I'll end, and I'll also end with a quote from a colleague of mine that I was told today, which I thought was a really nice image, that each step in progress is like a raindrop, and eventually all those raindrops will come together to form a lake. So for me, I've made a tiny bit of progress, but I'm feeling much more positive today as a result, much more hopeful. I've put my makeup on for the second time in 3 weeks, which is a record. And I've had a visit from a friend today. There will be more bad days, but today I'm trying to share a bit of positivity and B, a little bit of knowledge, but I would always recommend you check the professional guidelines and speak to your own doctor. I'm not your doctor. So we'll end there, and we'll catch up soon.